How are you, mate?
I'm good, buddy. Long time no see. What's going on?
Yeah, I know. It's weird. It's because you see people on Instagram nowadays so much. So I feel like I'm up to date with what you're doing, and I've seen a lot of you, but you haven't.
I know it's totally weird like that as well. You can literally follow someone's existence like literally day in, day out, if depending on
And
the.
it happens subconsciously too. It's not like I'm out there tracing what people are doing, but someone will mention someone, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I could tell you what they've done in the last 6 months, places they've been, where they've been eating. It's fucking bizarre.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of what I thought about doing this. I'm trying this new thing, right? I think it's going to catch on where I just sort of have like some interesting conversations with interesting
Yeah.
people I know and record it and put it out there. And I'm joking.
It's funny when you
So
messaged me. I thought of I've been thinking of doing the same thing myself for a while now because like the one thing that I had this idea for a podcast like a while ago. It's funny. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm sure you're the same. And what I often find I'm most interested in is just hearing about like more regular people interviewed by if you listen to Joe Rogan or something like that, obviously the Elon Musks and the people who are kind of like in an exceptional category are interesting. But I thought it'd be an interesting premise to sort of just have a podcast or some sort of interview with people that are your own age or around the same age and sort of actually ask them the same questions and unpack that life in a way that often isn't unpacked in the podcast space or social media, because I have so many fucking fascinating conversations with like for instance, Will and Jack Martin and their business and what they're doing. And I'd think like, you don't hear about those stories on podcasts because they're not quite big enough to sort of garner public interest, but you'd be fascinated to hear about it.
yeah, no, those are two people that I myself was thinking about reaching out to and having a conversation, because I saw I think you reposted it actually. They had that
Yeah.
story that popped up on Sunrise where they kind of transitioned their business to um, kind of the cleaning and the cleansing and decontaminating the areas that kind of have been affected by the virus and whatnot. And I was just like, yeah, totally. It's people that are just doing different things and just normal every day, not necessarily like super, super high performers
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you just get some cool insights into what different people are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now, like I've found with what's going on in COVID, I've really found some epic stuff online and on social media in the way of insights and like little hacks and little things that you can do to improve yourself. And they very often come from people or places that you don't expect it. It
Yeah.
can be like, I know in terms of what I do with act, and you'd find this too in your line of work. In terms of acting and writing and creative stuff, people always say to me like, "Oh, do you follow heaps of actors, or who do you aspire to be like?" And I often find myself thinking about people in completely different fields. I look to my brother, for instance, Harry, who's an architect and he's an artist and he does a whole bunch of different stuff. But it's crazy to me how transferable all the things that he has picked up are to what I do. And in similar way to yourself or to anyone really, like whether it's an athlete or a chippy or an actor, it's all the same shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are some of those things? Like, what are some of those things that maybe your brother does or someone you know does that you kind of take and utilize and put into the space of, when you're on set or when you're in an audition, or how do you use those?
Mate, I think honestly, I'm so lucky to have my older brother as an older brother, because I definitely fall into the classic younger brother syndrome of I follow Harry in a lot of what he does, just because he's my older brother. I look up to him in that way. But the one thing that I've learned from him is it's really difficult to achieve anything if you're caught up about what people think about you. And I'll start by saying, like, I think most people are too concerned with what people think of them, myself included. Like, I've struggled with that my whole life, but I don't think that's a unique struggle. I think it's unique if you're one of those people like my brother who are born and they truly don't give a shit what anyone thinks. Most of us have to work at that. And as I've gotten older, I think there is a natural degree of letting go. Like, you look at your folks, you look at your grandparents, by the time you get to that age, you just see it in people. They just don't care. But I think if you can adopt that mindset when you're in your 20s and you're trying to create an identity or trying to create something for yourself, particularly in something like acting, that is just flooded with other people's opinion and popularity and celebrity and all that, you do yourself a wonderful favor, because I really don't think it matters what you're doing. At a certain point, you need to take a risk, and that risk is risking embarrassing yourself. And what you realize is that falling on your face or failing, it's never embarrassing. The only thing that's embarrassing is the anticipation of it. The actual reality of failing is it makes you feel better. You go, geez, I had a crack and I failed and I'm still standing. And now that I've failed, I couldn't care less about doing it again and again and again and again. And I feel like most people never get over the first hurdle of actually allowing themselves to fail at something. I know for me, like I have a lot of friends that look at me and go, oh, like you're doing well now, or this thing, that's lined up for you well. But by and large, like I feel like a total failure. Like people just don't see it. Like I do so many auditions and so much weird shit as an actor, and go to some serious lengths to try and get myself in the room or make an impression. And people don't see that. They only see the success. And I guess I've just come to realize that everyone else is the same. Even when I meet really good actors or directors, when they demystify themselves, after a while, you realize everyone at heart is a little bit of a dork. And, embracing that, I suppose, is essential.
Man, I totally agree, and like want to dig into that a little bit more. And I think, acting, having, trying my hand at it myself, I think that audition process just puts you face to face with failure, because you're going to get more no's than you do yes. And it's something that I learned about myself, in that I think initially may have thought that I didn't care what people think, but having gone through that process a number of times now, have started to really have an understanding of like, actually, I care a lot. And that really can like hold me back in some situations and circumstances, and learning then how to let go of something and start to be a bit more free in that sense. In an audition, let's like use that as a specific scenario, because I think it's just a good environment that just will show you straight away. Like, I feel, it's a very uncomfortable situation. Let's say like the first few times you went in for an audition, is that like, did you learn some things about yourself, or what did you kind of have to unpack, through maybe failing, or what?
I think like auditioning specifically is the first thing I realized from a film point of view, is that auditioning is different to acting on set, or being the way that you'd approach film or TV. Like auditioning itself, as is interviewing for a job, an art of itself. Like it's and the more I realized that, the easier it became. I think the biggest thing is, right, everyone knows what they're capable of, or at least they have an idea of what they want to be and what they want to be capable of. And I think when you first start auditioning, there's a natural desire to just impress someone. I don't care if it's acting or if it's a job interview. I think it's human nature to go in there and go, I want this person to know what I'm capable of. I want to charm this person. I want this, and they're all natural things. But it's ironic, because in order to do that, in order to truly impress someone in an audition, you have to let go of the idea of impressing them at all. And it's totally counterintuitive, because it makes sense to want to go in there and impress them and do the right thing. But the only way you can do that is by letting go of that completely. And I think that you can't do that instantly. At least I couldn't. Like, one of the ways that kind of that allowed me to do that was by failing enough. It forces you into to stop caring. Mm-hmm. I don't think that you can, at least with my personality or my experience, that you can't shortcut it. I can sit here now and tell you like 5 or 6 things that you might want to do, but the reality is that that failure is such a gift in that regard, because it wears you down. And if you keep trying while you're weighed down, it almost like you almost need it needs to chip away at your ego enough that you don't have any of it left. And so you get to the point where you just go, fuck it, I've got nothing else to prove. I've been told no enough. I'm just going to go in there and have fun and do my thing. And that's very often when you book a job or when things fall in your fall in your plate. But then there's also like simple things that you can do to help yourself, which are just common sense. But it does surprise me to hear that like some people don't know, like just doing the work, being prepared, making sure you're in the right mindset mentally and physically, like really simple things. Like for instance, if I got an audition at 10 o'clock, I'm a bit manic like this, but I'll make sure I get a workout in before. I'll make sure that like at least a couple of days before I'm having a good sleep. I'm not going out. I'm very regimented that way. And sometimes I wonder if it's placebo. I think in the end it doesn't matter. But I really, really take care of myself physically and mentally if I've got something coming up. And some people, I think, they sabotage themselves because they're scared. That I hear people about, like, they go out and they get on the piss or whatever on the weekend when they have an audition on Monday or on Tuesday. And I just think you can't be serious and say you didn't know that would affect you. But I feel like some people do it out of fear, and because then they have an excuse. But if you take full accountability and full responsibility, it's more embarrassing if you don't get it. So I think, and you put yourself in the absolute best frame of mind and the best physical state to get something, and then you don't get it, then it's even more sort of like crushing if you don't. But at least you can say, well, I gave it 110%,
Yeah. And I think that principle is really like important. You do need to, it's kind of like win before you enter the room, in that you do the groundwork, you control everything that is within your control, I guess. And you make sure that you action and prioritize those things just to even give yourself the best chance. Because like obviously in an audition room, there's so many variables that will dictate, whether you book a job or don't. And so much of it is kind of not within your control. So I think that's totally true. But no, I agree that a lot of it comes through repetition. I think repetition and being told no and failing, and it just forces you. Yeah. If there is ego, if there is something that kind of, maybe you're not aware of it, it can chips away at you until you kind of get to that level of like, okay, you might know yourself a little bit more. You might have now just that greater sense of fuck it. You have less to lose. And that way you're able to like, fully commit to something, as opposed to then be like, ooh, being something that you think somebody else wants you to be.
No, that's 100% spot on. I think also like being told no enough, it'll do two things to you in my mind. It'll either destroy you, you'll give up, or it'll force you to consider, what is it that I have to offer? Because if I'm being told no, then I've got to sit back and go, right, well, what do I know that I have? Like, what do I, like in my gut, what do I know that I have to offer? And if I can't trust those things, and if I can't truly believe in them, then no, I don't stand a chance of someone else believing in them. And I think that it's funny, you said before how you said that you thought you didn't care, but really you did. And I've gotten to that point too. Like as I've gotten older, I just embrace the fact that I do care. Like I care about everything. That's just the way that I am, and like, I'm a sensitive person. So, and I think when you're younger, particularly being a young guy, you fight that. But, it sounds cliche, but the moment you embrace that, there is so much strength in it. And really the thing that'll get you a job in the acting world, and I think in so many worlds, is just a sense of vulnerability. Like, people talk about charm all the time. You got to be charming. You got to use it. Especially, I hear it all the time from casting directors, or not necessarily casting directors. Actually, they don't say that, but people say like use your charisma or charm them. That's bullshit. Like that, I think that's misleading. What charm really is to me is a sense of vulnerability. Charming is not being cool. Cool is shit. Like no one wants to look at someone and think that person's like cooler than me. What is cool and what is interesting in reality is a sense of vulnerability. And like, that's why if I have a conversation with someone who, it doesn't matter if they're awkward, or if it doesn't matter if there's something that doesn't quite click, if what you're getting is authentic, it's so magnetic. Like you're just drawn into someone being themselves, and it's a lot simpler than people make it out to be. But to be vulnerable, I think is it's tough. And it's not about going in there and like showing emotion and trying to be like melodramatic about it. It's just being honest. I think being vulnerable is just being honest. When someone asks you a question, you answer completely truthfully, or when you, in your performance, I suppose, from an audition point of view, you're always trying to be as truthful and authentic as possible. And from an acting point of view, that's personal, man. If you do an audition and you throw yourself into it and you try and be as real as you can and you draw on your own experiences and they sit there and they go, oh, it fell a bit flat for me, it was a bit wooden. Like, it hurts, but that's the name of the game. Like, it's not an easy thing to, as fun and weird and wild and playful as it is, it's brutal. And I learned that pretty quickly as soon as I started acting.
Yeah. I mean, how do you take the failures, let's say, like, I don't know if you've been watching the Michael Jordan documentary, but
Yeah.
like one of the most interesting qualities is just kind of like that grit and that hunger and the like win at all costs mentality that, like, obviously he is kind of who he is, and he's in a league that only a few people are in because he has that on such another level. Like,
Yeah.
how do you find, like, if you get rejected or you get told no, are you kind of one to be like, fucking, it just fires you up for the next time? Or is it kind of something you have to kind of build yourself back up to be able to kind of go in and hit it again?
I reckon, I think the thing that really fires me up is when I don't get the best out of myself. It's not so much what someone else has said. Like, if I deliver a performance that I know is not reflective of my best work or my best effort, that's what fires me up, because I know that, especially in my case, you know, that's what the audience sees. That's what the casting director sees. And it kills me to go to sleep at night to know that on a producer's screen and an email link, that when they're casting a show, or a family watching the TV, or someone in the cinemas watching the movie, they're seeing 60% of what I'm capable of. And frankly, I feel like that about everything I do. Everything. Like, as I work more and more, I get closer to delivering stuff that I'm really confident with and like I'm proud of. But there's always a degree of going, fuck, I watch it and go, it could be better. Or not only could it be better, but I know I could have done better. And sometimes, very often, there are factors out of my control for that being the case. You know, like in the case of acting, you're really only as good as the writing that is given to you as a framework to use, as well as the creative team around you. You know, it's not an individual sport. It's very much a collaborative effort. And that's the same with so many things. But even still, you know, I like to think of it as this, like when you think of a singer, so many singers will sing that, like, are incredible in the shower. I don't know if you've ever lived with someone who's a good singer, but like, my little sister's a good singer. She'd never sing in public, but you hear her in the shower and she's incredible. Like, you just hear her around the house. I think that analogy is true for so many different things. It's certainly true for acting. You know, without a camera there and without people watching, I feel like I could deliver the best performance of my life. It's the same with someone, you know, not working under pressure in an exam. Someone can figure out a problem when they're relaxed in their own environment, but they can't do it with, you know, 60 people around them in a hall with a clock ticking. It's to me, it's all a matter of working from a point of view where you're truly relaxed, like you're charged, but you're relaxed, and that's where greatness happens. And I feel like one way to hack it is happiness. Like, if you can get joy from your work, it relaxes you. So I find in acting, if I'm feeling like shit in my life, for whatever reason, or there's a bad vibe on set, or there's a tension between me and another actor, or like there's a sense that maybe the director doesn't like me or whatever, it's a lot harder to be relaxed and deliver good work. But if you get to the point where you're just broing out with all the other actors on set, the director feels like your mate, you can fall on your face and you feel unjudged for it, and you're having fun. It's like going for a surf or whatever, like it's a truly fun experience. Then it's almost like you don't have to try and create anything. It just sort of comes out of you. And I think people talk about like being in that flow state. I just like to think of hacking myself into a place of fun, because to me, and it goes against a lot of what you read about art and artists, but like my best work comes out of a sense of joy and a sense of like just feeling good. So I just try and do everything in my life to feel good as much as I can. And I honestly think that from that, I at least put myself in a space where good work can evolve.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that like, if you're an actor and you haven't had that much experience on set and you've just kind of been going through the auditioning process, it's very interesting in that an audition will be very, very like a very different experience to what actually being on set probably feels like. It's, and having conversations with other actors as well, it's kind of this, you can get so fixated on just being good at maybe auditioning or just focusing on that part of the process without kind of going, well, that's not even the job. Like, that's not even like what may require you to be good in an audition. It's probably not, those attributes are probably very like not the same when it actually comes to being on set and performing and being in an environment and riffing with other people and having a camera in front of you and a director and the grips and everything that goes into being on set. You know, like, how do you find that changed? You know, like when you kind of booked your first role and then you're on set, you're like, oh, this is very different. Or
I find it a relief, because when you're auditioning, it feels like a totally individual sport. Like, you're in the room, you've got a casting director. If you're down to the callback phase, there's producers in the room, and they're all just looking at you. They're assessing you, and you feel interrogated. And you know, that's something that you have to accept as an actor. That at times you are going to feel like that. But I actually found the trend, in some ways, it's easier on a set because I love the collaborative element of it. I love speaking to the DOP and he comes up to me and says, look, I'm going to shoot this like rough and ready. So you move as you want, like sort of improvise the blocking. And then the hair and makeup come up to me and they're like, you know, actually for this scene, we think we're going to put some bags under your eyes. You've had a big night last night. I'm like, yeah, put a bit here. And suddenly like you're in this completely fantasy world with all these other creative people, and their ideas are sort of spurring ideas of your own. Like, if you have a costume person come up to you, for instance, and this, I love these conversations right at the beginning of a production, when I get to speak with hair and makeup and costume and design, because without even knowing, they give me so many ideas for my character. Like I just did the show in Mexico, and the costume design came up to me and they showed me like a full portfolio book of sort of ideas that they had for what my character would wear. And I was looking through these pages and seeing like stock photos they'd taken off the internet with certain, like, you know, it could be just like ripped jeans or like a hat here and there. And it's just giving me so many ideas for my own character. You don't get that in audition. In an audition, you play actor, director, hair and makeup, you're the DOP often because you're shooting it as well. And there's joy in that too. But it really, the beauty of working on a set in an actual production is that all you have to focus on is the acting. And so often when I speak to young actors like myself, or people beginning to start out, when they're shooting self-tapes or they're doing auditions, they're so preoccupied on about absolutely everything other than the acting. They're preoccupied on lighting, how it looks, how they look, how it sounds, the equipment they're using, the backdrop, who's reading on the other side. And all those things are important. But really, what's more important is your performance and your acting. That's what you're there to do. When I'm doing tapes and when I'm doing auditions, like, I know people that put thousands of dollars of buying equipment. I shoot stuff on my phone outside with my dog run. If it suits the scene, I'll go. I don't give a shit. Like, as long as it's audible and it's clear. What's important is that this casting director gets a taste for my spin on this character. I'll let the hair and make, like, I'm not going to spend all my time on a freaking perfect blue wall and perfect lighting. I mean, sure, it's important, but for me, what I really want to focus my time on is like breathing some life into this person. And I think casting directors can sniff that out more and more. An actor that is really in it for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I think I imagine there are, like myself included and others, that you can get lost in those details that actually they're probably not as important and detract from you actually focusing on what is. But touching on that, mate, how have you found, like, obviously having worked a lot in Australia, how did you find like going over to the US and, you know, network show and kind of, how was that experience?
it was a, man, it's a pretty crazy
How did it come?
adjustment.
How did it come about? Like, obviously, audition process, and then like take us through it.
It's a pretty good story. So I was filming a movie in Australia at the time in Cooper Pedy, which, by the way, was one of the best like experiences of my life. Really, getting to be out in the outback and play an awesome character with a really great director, and was at the end of the shoot of that, and I was staying in a hotel underground because it's so hot, right? And so they put me in this hotel underground, and I flew in on a small plane to shoot the last week out there because we were shooting between there and Sydney. And I got a call from my manager about a week earlier. I'd been sent an audition, and I remember reading the script, just the pilot, and thinking, not even thinking about getting a part in this show, but just thinking, holy shit, I can't wait to watch this show. Like, it's got the team, some of the team from Breaking Bad, Michelle McLaren, the director, just come off Game of Thrones. Michael Chiklis was the lead, who I loved in The Shield. And I just thought, wow, and the script was the best pilot I've ever read. And I've auditioned for American projects. I reckon prior to this one, I might have auditioned for upward of like 200 things, like just in the hundreds. People don't know that, but like every week I'm putting tapes down, just hearing nothing. And for a lot of stuff that was mediocre too, things that I thought I'd have a better chance of getting. And then this came in, and I read the pilot, and I thought, well, the character brief said 27 to 28 years old. I'm 23. I look about 20, so I got no chance of getting this, but I'm going to put a tape down. And so I did the tape with a friend who I always tape with, who's amazing, and didn't think about it, sent it off, flew to Cooper Pedy to go and shoot the final bit of this film. And I get in, and my managers have been trying to call me, but they couldn't because I had no reception. I've been on the plane. They call me and they say, George, they want to see you for a callback, studio callback for this thing. And I thought it was for another thing that I had auditioned for. And I was like, oh, we'll tell them, like, I'm in Cooper Pedy, I can't do it, and I'll do it when I get back. And they're like, no, it's not for that, it's for Coyote. And I remember thinking, oh no fucking way, like this can't be right. Like I was so not right for the casting brief, what they wrote. I didn't look like what they'd imagined. I was literally 10 years younger, but for whatever reason, they liked it and they wanted to see me. And so I said, well, look, I got to shoot the last couple of days of this film, and I can't fly to LA to do a callback. Like, I'm committed to this. And no, that's all good. That's all good. We've organized for you to do a Skype audition, kind of like what we're doing now. And I'm thinking, oh, great. Like, there's no fucking way I'm going to book this thing over Skype. And so I'm like, all right, we'll lock it in. So it was at 5:30 in the morning to line up with LA time. And I was shooting that day at like 7:30, about 7:30 in the morning. So I had to do it early. So I'm in this hotel in the desert, underground, at 5:30 in the morning on Skype with the biggest like heavyweights I've ever been on in a conference call with, or in an auditioning scenario with, on Skype. And I remember having like a Moccona coffee because that's all I could have. And I said to them, like, look guys, I need you guys to understand it's like 5:30 here in the middle of Australia. I'm just waking up. And they just burst out laughing. And I showed them where I was. And like from the get-go, I just thought, this is the most relaxed audition ever. For one thing, it was 5:30 in the morning, and it was too early to even be nervous. And secondly, like, it was just a bizarre scenario. It was hilarious. Like, they were laughing, I was laughing. So anyway, we went on to read the scene. They had a reader on the other end in LA, and I read the scene. I basically auditioned like we are now, which is bizarre because they don't really get a sense of who you are physically. They just get you. And so I did it, and it was really fun. And Michelle, who's the director, was like really sweet. And I thought, wow, what a lovely woman. And Michael, who was such a nice guy. And I thought, whoever gets this role is a lucky young kid. And but I honestly, like, hand on my heart, I finished that audition and thought, there's no way, not a chance in hell am I getting that part. I didn't think I'd butchered it or anything, but I just thought they're going to see 5 people in the room right now in LA who are going to be all, have hair and makeup, proper DOP, all the jazz, and I've just done this on Skype. There's no way in hell I'm going to do it. So I finished this film, don't hear anything for a while, and I go, all right, I need to go surfing because I'd just been filming back to back because I did a TV series before that. And so I flew to Fiji for a weekend to go surfing. Didn't have my phone. It was in Cloudbreak.
Amazing.
And went surfing for 3 days with my brother and Will and Jack, my mates, came back and had a call from my manager saying I'd booked the job. So I was just like, I could not believe it. And then, yeah, a couple of weeks later, I moved over, and the situation was that we were filming in Baja, Mexico, but that's close enough to LA that most of the actors, except for Michael, who's the lead of the show, were based out of LA, and we were sort of transported down based on our filming schedule. So I was based out of LA, but I might go down, say, get driven down to Tijuana, which is like a 2.5 hour drive, stay there in a hotel from like Monday to Thursday, then get driven back to LA, Thursday to Sunday, come back on a Monday. So it was really the best of both worlds, because I was auditioning in LA for other projects while I was going down to Mexico to shoot. But I have to say, like, when I first walked on that set, it was like going back to school for the first day again, because it was, the scale of things was crazy, man. Like, it's like, I realize you hear a lot about America and how it operates. I think it's a cliche, and it's so overwrought this, but you really understand that it's a business there. It feels like, I mean, it's a business in Australia too, but it feels like every project that gets up in Australia is almost like a passion project. Like it's a small cottage industry, and it takes a lot of effort for things to just get up. And it feels really like, it's part of this arts sector. In America, the reality is it's a money-making machine. And so you go there, and it's, you feel the pressure. That's the first thing. I look up and I just see trailers everywhere, and I just see so much money in front of me. I'm just thinking, there is so much money thrown at this every day. All these people who I have no idea what they're doing. There are so many people just walking around. On Australian set, after a couple of days, you know everyone's name. It feels like a footy club. Like, you're in there, you're talking shit, you're having a good time. But over there, it's like, I wouldn't even have known 10% of the set, let alone what these people were doing. And so, yeah, with the scale of things, that was intimidating, and the pressure of things, and thinking, also, they're ruthless. People got fired. Like, that doesn't really happen. At least it hasn't happened in my experience. Like, and not because of misbehavior, but just straight away, like, this isn't a fit. This isn't working. Boom, fired, replaced. And just not a shadow of thought about it. And so you feel that pressure as you go in. But the other thing that I realized while I was doing it, so other than the bells and whistles and all of that, which are vastly different, and the scope of things, which feels bigger, the actual crux of it, it's all the same shit. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a school play, if it's an Australian TV series, or if it's a big American production. Like, acting is acting. It's like, it was sort of really humbling to realize that, because I would tell my younger self now, like, don't ever think that these people on these sets, that are doing like even like big James Bond films or whatever, are gaining magical powers that you can't gain from just reading a fucking script in your room and acting. Like, it's all the same stuff. It's just you and another actor and a director with a script telling a story. And when I realized that, it was sort of nice, because I realized that, like, it's only the noise and the bells and whistles around it that changes, but the actual heart of it, it's all the same stuff. And which means that I can be working on it anytime, anywhere, and no experience is really, the scale of something doesn't necessarily make the work of a higher quality. It might reach more people, it might access more people, and it might look a shit ton better. But really, you could still deliver a performance of higher quality in a school theater. And I truly believe that. I think that some of the best acting, the best performances go on in theaters that sit 200 people for a week showing, and no one ever hears about it. But that's the crazy thing about it, our industry. It's a mix of art and business. And just because something is reaching millions of people all across the world doesn't necessarily mean it's of high quality.
Mate, it's such an invaluable experience to have. And I think you're right. The more, I think by virtue of getting older as well, and just having more experiences like that, you kind of leave school and, you come out of uni or something, get your first job, and you automatically think that everyone else is just smarter and better. And then after a while, you kind of go, okay, like, no one's necessarily smarter than me. No one works harder than me. No one, and then you're like,
Yeah,
okay. And then you get to that next level and you automatically, again, you're like, oh, okay, now these people are going to be, like you said, they're going to have special powers. They've done all these things. They've look at their resumes, like, whoa. And then you kind of go,
yeah,
huh, like, yeah, again, like no one's working harder, or no one's doing anything really differently. Like no one's
no,
especially talented. They probably just have
no,
access to kind of being able to go, this is what it is. It's not personal. This is transactional. You're then able to be a lot more comfortable in that environment. And therefore, when it matters, they probably more consistently perform. And again, that's
that's
just
it.
experience.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's spot on, and it's like it's healthy to realize that at a young age. The other thing that I like to tell myself all the time is like, no one really knows what they're doing
Yeah.
until they've done it. Until they've done it a few times, what stops people from doing things so often is they lack complete certainty of how to do it. But you're never going to have that. If you wait around for complete certainty of going, I know how to do this, you'll never do it. Because in order to get the information, you do need to just kind of jump off take a leap of faith and sort of wing it to a degree. Like the fake it till you make it, I kind of live by that. Like I look back to school, like I was never a really smart kid when I was younger. I don't think I'm overly smart at all. I think I just have like a pretty, when we talk about like, there are some whizzes out there and stuff, but we talk about like cognitive function. I'd say I have like a baseline intelligence. I don't think I'm dumb, but I don't think I'm overly smart. But I remember one day when I was a kid, I just decided I'm going to be smart. Like I don't know what it was in me that I realized that I wasn't going to be an athlete because I wasn't athletic enough. So I decided, okay, I need to be smart. I just need to be smart. And I just pretty much made the decision to myself that I was going to be smart. And, it's not that anything actually really changed in my brain or anything like that. But it's funny just telling myself that it was like a turning point in my life. I look back, like I did really well through school. And then, I started reading books and doing all that. And now I'm in a position now where I don't think I would be if I didn't at some point in my life turn around and say, I want to be smart. And that is faking it till you're making it to a T,
Yeah. No, I think it's don't wait for permission.
No.
And I think that's a really important thing that's what can hold a lot of people back, I feel. You kind of wait. It's like a great saying is like, the first pilots never had a license. They had this crazy
Yeah.
idea. They didn't wait for someone to tell them they could do it and all the technology to be able to do it. So, and I think that just kind of transcends, trying to be successful or just trying to do something that you want to do. Like it's letting go of waiting for permission, waiting to be told that you're ready, or having achieved a level of success or having a certain resume. You really have to just kind of get to that point where you just go, fuck it, I'm just going to do it and just see what happens. And again, failing. If that means failing, then I'll go again.
No, I that's spot on. And I think also like you get to a point where if you've committed to doing something, the passion, at least in my case, the passion begins to take over. So like with acting, it started off with like, I think I'd like to do it. I think I'd like to do it. Finally commit to doing it. Once you start doing it, it's like you're in too deep. So I could not care less about if I'm any good anymore. I just love it so much. And I'm so hell-bent on achieving what I want to, that I don't even consider whether it's possible or whether this is going to happen or not, because I'm just enjoying it so much. And I think that's the key with any goal. If you can get to the point where the passion overshadows your constant need for validation, then you're on, and that's really the case for me. Like with where I'm at now with acting, I'm so passionate about film and TV and acting and all of it now, really writing, and I want to direct and do all that. And it's funny, when I started out, I was so concerned about what people thought of me, and like whether I was good or bad or what people thought. I just don't care anymore, because, I care, of course, to a degree, but what I care more about is getting to do it every day. And so it's sort of irrelevant what other people think, because I know for a fact I'm going to be doing it every day. So like, it's really lovely to get to a point and liberating where where you're driven more by that passion than
Mm.
by a sense of someone saying, "Oh, you're good" or "you're bad," and that comes with maturity. I think. I think everyone gets to a certain point where they do eventually kind of let go of that.
Yeah, and I think you're modest and you wouldn't say it about yourself, but you definitely get that authenticity, which I'm sure many casting directors and people that you're auditioning for, I'm sure that comes across in your performance. So, and
Right.
it's like it's a very refreshing and a rare quality that you see in people. So when you get to have a conversation with someone, and I mean, it's probably why you get a lot of energy from your brother, because your brother probably naturally exudes that and just kind of
Yeah.
walks the walk there, and it's a really rare quality, I find, and really refreshing.
Yeah.
To be able to have conversations with people like that as well, which is kind of the point of doing this as well. But like that, because we went to school together back in the day,
Yeah.
and like I would have never have known that you had wanted to be an actor. Like, was that something leaving school that you knew you wanted to do, or was that something that you just were like, I'm just gonna have a go? I think this looks fun.
No, it not at all. I've always been desperate to be good at something. So like, when I was younger, as I said, like I wanted to be an AFL player. I was too slow. I was never going to be that. I wanted to be, Harry was always a really good swimmer. I was always a bit slower. And then I was pretty smart, but I was never really smart. So I always felt like I was just kind of pretty good at everything without being really good at anything. And then it was funny. I chose 5 kind of difficult subjects in year 11 and 12 to study. And I was going to choose art. And my mum turned around to me and said, "Why are you doing art?" And I said, "I don't know, Harry does it. Like he loved it. I needed one easy subject." And Mum's like, "Art's not going to be easy for you. You suck at art. Like you can't draw at all." And so I
Love
said,
a good, honest mum.
yeah. She saved me. And she goes,
Thanks, mum.
"You should do drama. If you want an easy subject, you should do drama." I'm like, "Fuck, Mum, I'm not doing drama. I'm not doing that." And
I
of
love
course
that
I
she
ended up.
supported you, like wanting to do a blood subject. She's like, be an art. Drama's
Oh,
so
yeah.
much easier. Do that.
No, totally, man. Mum's great like that. Mum gets it. Mum gets how we think. But she encouraged me to do drama, and I kind of, to begin with, I thought, yeah, this is just a bludge. And then it was actually, I injured my leg quite badly skiing. I did my PCL, and I couldn't do any sport or anything. So I was just bored, senseless in year 11.
That's
And my
probably
drama,
because you were doing the crazy stuff that the fucking Martin brothers were doing. I'm
yeah. No, I
sure that's
definitely.
in your contracts probably now. Like no holidays with the Martin brothers.
Oh, well, no, I must send producers mad, because I know that even in Mexico, like while I was down there on my days off, I was like renting a car and going surfing, and they couldn't believe it. Like they gave us like a security guard and like all these things to me that just seem so over the top, like really generous, but over the top. And then one day I turned around to a bunch of actors who said that they've been like ushered through the markets with their security guard. I'm like, "You guys are hanging out with your security." I rented a car on Saturday and went surfing in Mexico, and they couldn't believe it. But I think that's more of an Australian thing as well. Like we don't, we're maybe a bit naive in that sense, but I
Yeah.
like that part of ourselves. But yeah, getting back to that, I did my leg and had all this time. My drama teacher was like, "You should do the school play. Like you've got all this time. I'd love for you to be a part of it." And it really was, it conflicted me, because I was like, I'd love to do it, but geez, what are my mates going to think? Like doing the school play, like that's a bit of a 180 from where I was. And I just thought, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And when I did it, I loved it. I loved it so much. And it was really one of those things that I did that just felt, it just felt like it came with a bit of a sense of ease. Like so many other things in my life, so much of my life feels forceful. It just does. Like that's just life. I really have to work at so many things for them to just be good. And then when I started acting, I was like for me to do well on an exam, I couldn't rock up, no study and ace it. I always looked at those kids and went, how do you, like, I was that kid studying so much to do well. And then acting was like the first thing I ever did where I went, I seem to be able to do this with more ease and less effort than a lot of other people. And that doesn't mean that I wasn't inspired to put in work, but I just thought this is something that I should sort of investigate a bit more. And the more I did, the more I I kind of got hooked into it and loved it, and realized that, like, I look back on it now and realize that so much of my life had kind of been leading to it. Like, I love stories in any capacity. I love movies. I love books. I love music. I love my dad telling a story. I love telling a story at Christmas. I love hearing them. And getting to be a part of that world as an actor, that's really what you are. Like, to me, I always think, oh, is acting a superficial thing? Is it, you know, is it narcissistic? Is it wanky? I used to worry about that. And the more I do it, the more I realize that's just such rubbish. Like, it's a primal thing. It's as primal as eating and exercising, you know, or whatever it is. It's storytelling. It's been something we've been doing for as long as we've been around. It's what separates us from chimps, really, is the fact that we can tell stories and continue to tell them to generations onward and onward. And I think it was one of the first things that it felt like I'd found something that was bigger than myself. And acting is always a fine line, because at its best, you are contributing to something bigger than yourself. But at its worst, it can feel so self-indulgent, so narcissistic, and you feel so claustrophobic. And I experienced both days. I experienced days where I'm walking around going, fucking hell, like, I've spent the entire day thinking about how I look for a scene, or I need to do this or do that. And I just feel like this is a terrible way to spend my time. Like, this is pathetic. What am I doing? And then I'll have some other days where you feel like you get to be a part of a world that a writer has written, or work with actors and live on a set that's part of someone's imagination. That is just so much bigger than and funner and wilder than what so many people get to do day to day. And it honestly feels like I pinch myself so much when I get to work and have days like that. It's like, you honestly feel like you're living in a dream. It's great.
Mate, yeah. Well, that's an interesting part of it, especially because I'm talking about the notion of celebrity. So,
yeah,
you know, when you're an actor and you probably have achieved the level of success which you have, and those that have kind of go on and on and on, how has your experience been with that kind of concept? And how do you manage it? And how do you know, I'm sure you know people that have kind of, it's taken them, you come to a crossroad, I imagine, and you can either go down one path or you can go down another path.
That's it. Yeah, you nailed it just then. I'd love to say it's as simple as that. When you go down one path, you stick on it, but it's not. I think celebrity, not that I've experienced like it on a grand scale, but I think I have been exposed to it a lot, and people that I've met, and you know, I can see glimpses of it. It does. It's crazy how it works, man, because it does two things. I feel like it both inflames your ego, but it also kills it. Like, for me, something that I sort of struggle with a little bit is, even when I meet people sometimes, is like knowing that deep down I'm not the person that a lot of people have, how a lot of people perceive me, and very often feeling like I'm going to disappoint someone when I meet them. And I feel like it's not just famous actors, but that's a day-to-day thing in life now with social media and Instagram. But I feel that regularly. Like, I feel that when I meet people, like, at heart, man, like I'm pretty quirky person, you know, like I like different things, and I live my life differently to a lot of people. And it sometimes takes me a little bit of like, I sometimes have to trust someone in order to share that. And the tough thing is that, and I think this is true of a lot of actors, actors by their nature are good at perceiving what people want to see from them, and they're even better at giving them that. But it's a slippery slope, because it's like, when does the performing stop? You know, like I'm good at, I think I'm good at bullshitting to a degree, you know, and not a lot of people would say that, but I think most actors are the same. And the problem with that is that you get good at giving people exactly what they want to hear. But the more you do that, the further away you grow from yourself, and you grow away from the very thing that got you to where you were in the first place. And so it is a fine line. And for me, I'm still kind of figuring it out. But one thing I think, quite a simple thing that you can do to sort of balance that is hold on to the things in your life beyond acting that make you who you are. For me, that's surfing, that's family, that's exercise, that's reading and keeping curious about a whole bunch of other things, and also being curious about other people outside your bubble and outside your world, because so much of me as an actor is me as a person. You've got to, growth as an actor and growth as a person are synonymous. They 100% are. I think that's why so many actors or musicians even blow up and then they're nowhere to be found, because they grow so far apart from the very thing that got them there in the first place. And it's important to point out that it's a conscious effort. It doesn't happen naturally, but like every day I work at just trying to be a decent, authentic person. And I know that can sound a bit wanky and schmoozy, but the truth is that as an actor, you have to work at it more, I believe, than someone else, than someone, say, working a typical 9 to 5, because I get my ass kissed all the time. Like on a set, you've got someone walking up to you saying, "George, you want a coffee? George, you want this?" Or, people telling you things that you want to hear. And you sort of have to, you have to check yourself and go like, this is not the world that everyone else lives in. And frankly, it's not a really fun world to live in. It becomes boring. I'm lucky too that I'm surrounded by such a good family and friends that they constantly keep me in check with that. But it's also up to you to surround yourself around people that are authentic and interesting and real and varied, have a varied friendship group. I'm lucky in that sense that I think one of my biggest strengths as an actor is I've got so many friends from so many different parts, from so many different groups and cultures and different parts of the world. And I feel like they allow me to draw on more as an actor and become a more complete person.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine just through the work that you do that other people start to generate a narrative around who you are based on what they see. And then people may have a sense of obligation to kind of continue that narrative for them through, when they kind of interact with you or see you in person. And it can probably take people off, or just like people then start to lose that sense of actually what, who am I fundamentally? What am I? What is that? Instead of what they want me to be, what is actually that I wanted to be? Or
no, that's the funny thing too. Like how people see you says more about them than it does about you. It's like, and there's really no way, I think, of, the other thing is there's no way of pleasing everyone. And that's tough for me to accept, because I just want people, I want to please people, not because I want them to like me, but just because, like, I hate to disappoint people. I hate to offend someone. But, you do have to have the courage at a certain point to just stand by your values and stand by who you are. And if that pisses a few people off in the process, or if that makes you a weird guy or not as cool as what people might thought you were, well, so be it. Because on the other end of that spectrum, you're actually, you're impressing people a lot more by I don't know, being a bit more vulnerable, a bit more true and honest. And it's just you've kind of struck a chord with me, because the whole like cool thing is something that I think about a lot. And like what I basically realize is that like cool is so temporary. Like it's so cheap. It doesn't last. Like the only thing that lasts is a sense of like, I don't know, vulnerability and true passion and true curiosity. And whatever those things make you, that's just who you are. Like, fuck it. Don't overthink it. That's if you're following your curiosity and you're following your gut, then how people perceive my behavior as a result of that is what it is. And there's no point in trying to change it, because it's just who I am.
Yeah. Something I would think about a lot is that, when you leave school and you may have, all those structures in place that, people are guiding you and teaching you and giving you lessons. And, when you go out into the world, this is how you do things. And then after that, it kind of stops. Like we're not encouraged to, there's so many kind of fundamental lessons and clinical pearls that you can learn by, having someone, older and having had experience through life, and that can be your family and whatnot, but really like having that relationship with someone that they kind of can, give you an insight. Okay, you're around here, you should be thinking maybe about these things. You're probably spending a bit too much time thinking about this. They're just kind of like a mentor. And I find people really don't invest in trying to find them when they're moving through different stages of life. I mean, like who are people you kind of look up to, like within the industry or not, that you find is a bit of a guiding star in that sense?
I think that I just got the opportunity to work closely with Michael Chiklis, who's the lead of the show that I've just been working on. And Michael's like, he's a Golden Globe winner. He had a really famous show in the early 2000s, which sort of
Fantastic Four, the early days.
He was like one of the early TV gods, really. Like I feel like a lot of the shows he did paved the way for like your Breaking Bads and your Game of Thrones and stuff. And so I got to spend a lot of time with him, and he's been like one of my first real mentors as an actor. And the way that he works just impressed me so much. And it wasn't really just his acting. Like obviously he's a great actor, and I expected that, but it was just how he kind of cooperated on set and how comfortable he made everyone feel, how he acknowledged everyone from like the third AD to, the director, to the producers, to the grips assistant, to whatever. He treated everyone absolutely the same. And he recognized that he had an influence on that set as number one on the call sheet, as like the big guy on the show. The way that he sort of treated everyone on set the precedent for everyone else, because he's the biggest guy on the set. And so like everything that he does, it really does set the precedent for everyone else. But he also really kind of took me under his wing and helped me navigate LA. Like he saw that I probably wasn't overly compatible with a lot of Hollywood, and I kind of expressed that to him, and he felt that too when he first moved out there from Boston. And so he really went above and beyond for me. And this isn't normal of I haven't found this normal to be of a working experience, but like he introduced me to his family, to his daughters who are around my age. They introduced me to their friends. He helped create a world for me in LA and a base, which was really important. And he just constantly drilled to me as well of the importance of when you finish work and you finish set, you finish, especially in what I do in acting. You really do need to create those boundaries for yourself. Like when I'm done, I'm done. Because if I constantly live in that space, you're going to drive yourself nuts. And he just, more than anything, we would speak about he'd talk to me about the importance that I keep surfing and that I keep, doing all those other things that I love, because he's like, that's what makes you the actor that you are. And that's what's going to give you longevity in this game. If you get too caught up in all of it, you'll just lose a sense of yourself, which is not good. It's like that's that part of you that got you there in the first place. And so yeah, he's been a wonderful mentor to me. And then I really do draw on people from fields outside my own. I Mick Fanning is a hero of mine. He grew up, down the street from where I am now, and I watch a heap of interviews with him. And the thing that I love about like watching someone like Mick Fanning is like one of the most successful athletes in our country, in my history. And there's just this sense of relatability and like genuineness and authenticity. And I just love people like that have achieved such success, but that are so willing to give back and are so willing to just be normal and not try and elevate themselves above anyone. Like he's available, he's relatable. He just seems like a normal guy and who has put an extraordinary amount of effort into this one thing, and it's paid back. So I love listening to Mick and I read his book and watching things about on him. And then for me, it's like I'm still searching. Like I'm a bit of a podcast fiend. Like I'm constantly listening out for like pearls of gem that I can find on the net. And that's the crazy thing about living in the world we live in today. Like you can educate yourself. It's crazy how much you can like I'm trying to write at the moment. I've just written my first draft of a screenplay, and I've taught myself everything off YouTube clips and books that I ordered off Amazon. And I just told myself so long, I can't do this because I don't know how. I've never been to film school. I just realized you can just educate yourself. You know, it's everywhere.
One thing I've read recently, which I think is spot on and really interesting, is that access to information is infinite, but the drive to want to learn is finite. So, and people don't realize that. It's like, you know, if you really want to learn how to do something, the resources and information needed for you to do it is available to you most of the time for free. But what is limited is actually the will and the drive and the hunger to want to learn and to want to educate yourself. And I think that's what
Do you think that comes like, I wonder if people are like, if that comes in innately, or whether, I think it's probably a bit of both, or whether that's just developed by consciously trying to have more, like, drive is a fascinating thing for me, because I often think the people that I knew that were really driven in school are still the people that are really driven now. Like, there are cases, of course, that are exceptions to the rule, but I wonder a lot, like, where drive comes from, and I wonder a lot where it comes from me. Sometimes I think it really comes from, it was born out of a fear of failure, you know, just this drive to overcome that. But I don't know, it's just something that I think about.
No, I've had that conversation a lot recently, and I think, you know, I think there's a lot to do with biology. So, like, if you think about evolution, the reason that, like, the gene pool and many of us kind of are or have survived so long is that we had to conform. We had to, you know, stay within a tribe. If we stuck our head out too high, like, a lot of the time you were killed, or you were, you know, so there were those that were really driven forward thinkers that were kind of the leaders of humans. And then there were the vast majority of us that kind of, you know, we stayed in our tribe, we followed, we listened, we obeyed, we kind of did exactly what we needed to do, but we didn't want to, you know, we didn't want to test things. We didn't really want to go outside of the herd because it was too dangerous. So I think evolution kind of suggests that there's a part of that kind of psyche and mentality that is encoded in us. But then I think that's part of also a larger multivariate equation, where I think it's like anything, man. It's like stress. It's essential. You know, too much is bad, too little is bad. You know, if your environment's right and the stimulus is right, and someone has a need, like a fundamental need and want and mission to get better, then they will.
Yeah.
So I think
that's spot on. It made me think too. I was having a conversation recently about balance, and like how important balance is, and doing too much and too little. And I have to say, like, this goes against so much advice and health and, you know, expert opinion. But I don't know too many young, successful people that weren't at some stage completely obsessed with what they did. And I think that while it's important, it's so important to be balanced. I totally get that. I think it's often said in retrospect by people that already are successful. And I've noticed that in my own experience, because I often think, like, I've gone too hard. Like, I'm too obsessed with this. I think sometimes the equilibrium does need to be a little out of whack at times for you to find your way. And, like, that's never printed in a Men's Health magazine or something like that. But I truly believe that to my core. Like, I really don't know too many people that are in their 20s or 30s who are doing very well at what they're doing, who haven't at some point gone, wow, this person's obsessed with that thing. Like, they're really putting everything into it, you know?
Yeah. I think when you look at it's kind of like the elite mentality, you know, if you look at the high performers like Michael Jordan, like Laird Hamilton, I don't know if you've seen his doco.
I haven't seen his doco, but I know a bit about him.
The common theme I find with those people is that they were pretty unlikable people, like, fundamentally, to be around, to compete with. You know, if you're a part, you know, all that commentary around Michael Jordan, like, it was pretty terrifying to be his teammate. Like, he was a bully. If you weren't there to win a championship every day, then he was like, fuck off. Like,
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
no space for you here. And he would obviously like ooze that fucking energy, and people were just
yeah,
terrified of him. It was same with Laird. Like, I got that a lot from his documentary as well. Like, he wanted to like be the best and surf the biggest waves, and he would do it at all costs. Like, fuck mate, you could have been his brother and he would have just like dropped in on you or done a deal
yeah,
with someone else that meant he could go ahead and get,
yeah,
I think that is a quality, like that is an elite mentality. And I think if you, and there's a price of admission that comes with that. I think if you're trying
yeah.
to
I agree.
achieve the absolute pinnacle of whatever it is that you're doing, there is a price of admission, and it's probably going to mean you're not going to be, very likable. You're probably going to be seen as a bit obsessed. There's probably not going to be a lot of balance.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, if that's sometimes what it takes to be the best.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is true. And that thing about Michael, that doco about Michael Jordan, I definitely got that vibe from him. Like, but you can't. At the same time, I couldn't really fault it, because what he wants is what everyone really wants, but the way that he goes about it isn't necessarily what everyone else is willing to do.
No,
And that documentary was eye opening. Hey, that Michael
mate, it
Jordan
was
thing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm conscious I'm smoking your time. So
No, I've just rambled so much, but
it's
it's been really good.
it's been good, mate. Like, last thing, what's like the ultimate for you? What's like right now? Obviously, that would probably evolve over time. But what's a real bucket list thing, or something you really you're working towards?
Just before I answer that, I feel terrible because I haven't asked you a single question, but I figured that I'll give you the time to sort of.
We'll do it. We'll do it again. We'll do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the ultimate for me is, I really, really want to get to a point in the next couple of years. I don't want to put a time frame on it, but the ultimate for me is where I'm picking and choosing roles. In that things that scripts are, I think every actor wants that, where their scripts are landing on their desk and they're picking and choosing roles. But really, I want to produce my own stuff and be a part of productions that I'm wearing another hat, whether it be as a writer or as a executive producer, or I basically just want to get more creative control over the process, and to get more involved in how the story's told, rather than just in front of the camera. But for me, like, man, I don't get too blindsided by like long-term visions. I think the key to life, I think Tim Minchin said this, like, the key to success is like the aggressive pursuit of short-term goals. And I fully believe that. I just focus on, whether it's an audition, whether it's the TV series that I'm doing, whether it's a short film, I just focus on doing 110% my best job. And I know that if I do that every time, I'll just keep moving forward, in a way that I want to. But yeah, keep working in Australia and America, and in both keep working in Australia and America, both like in front of and behind the camera. That's the ultimate. I want to do it all, basically.
Mate, that's awesome. Mate, it was so good to catch up with you, eh? Really good.
Yeah, so good to catch up. I definitely have to, pick your brain and speak to you, but I just figured you had some questions, so I wanted to give you my complete answers. And
mate, it went in a great direction. I was happy. It was awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's good to catch up. So just quickly before you go, what you were living in Sydney? Like,
yeah. So my wife and I. Oh, sorry.
Are you working? Are you working from home in all of this? Like, what's the? Because
So a lot of my business is online anyway, so the transition wasn't too disruptive. Right. So I've just been kind of consulting and doing a lot of corporate seminars and coaching my own clients as well. But they're just more kind of, they look after themselves and consult and touch base and give feedback and stuff like that. But yeah, mate, we're in Sydney. We've been here for like 5-6 years now. The missus is working from home in there on a call. But yeah, man, I'm dabbling in the acting world as well and trying my hand at that. It's always been something to me that I got to a point where I'd been told so much that I should do it, and I'd always enjoyed being on set. Just like I just got organic opportunities to do it through like modeling and whatnot, and then I always loved it. And I've always it was just in the back of my mind kind of last year where I was like, fuck it, if I don't want to die wondering. I've never really fully jumped in and just given it a full on crack. And I was like, I'll kick myself if I don't do it. So I just kind of went, I'm just going to do what I need to do. And I'm going to try and find myself like a reputable agent in Sydney. I'm just going to like, what do I need to do? So I kind of touch base with this person. Okay, I need to put a show reel down, yada, yada. They got through the process and luckily like got an agent and have kind of been starting that process. So I thought it'd just be awesome to have a conversation with like someone who's, living it and breathing it and, having these experiences. And it's just good to have a conversation.
We'll have to have many more because like I kind of wanted to know, I didn't really know where you're at with it, but now that I know like that's the case, I'd love to just chat more about it. And also I'm fucking really curious about what you're doing in the way of health and fitness. And I love, like, that's a passion of mine. I read up about that shit all the time and I love it. So anything you've sent me, I've found like really interesting. So we should definitely speak again. I think I'll be down in Sydney once these borders open. I'm going to try and get down in Sydney probably, as soon as they do. So I'll try and catch up in person.
Yeah, mate, let us know when you're here. We can grab a beer. But yeah, we can do another one like this, man. We can just be health and fitness and...
Yeah, no, that'd be good. And I could ask you a few questions.
Yeah, done. All right, I'll hold you to it.
Yeah. Awesome, bro. All right, mate. You take care. It's good to chat.
You too, dude. Enjoy the waves.
Yeah, no, I will. All right. See you, mate.
See you, buddy. Bye.